You're listening to the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
We had to take last week off because of some scheduling things, and so we haven't talked about us meeting up in Indiana.
No, we didn't, man, and it's so funny that I saw you before you saw me. It's crazy to all our fans and listeners. Like, Kev lives in Kentucky. Our producer, Kev, lives in Kentucky. Zane Pasley lives in Indiana, and I live in North Carolina. So obviously, we don't see each other every weekend or every day. In all reality, I've only actually seen Zane once until 2 weeks ago in person. But I walked out of the hotel, and I seen these guys with Zubaz, and I was with two friends and stuff. And they were like, hey, what's up with the guys with the Zubaz? Like, they have to be wrestling fans. And I was like, if we're in Indiana, yeah, we're definitely going to see a lot of Zubazes. It's like my buddy, Zane Pasley, has this little group and stuff, and they call themselves Beards and Zubazes. And then Zane turned to the side. I'm like, man, is that Zane? Like, God, it's a huge-ass beard. That has to be Zane. And so I called his name out, and I'm like, hey, Zane. And Zane turns around. I was like, Will, what's up, man? You know, and of course, you were there with Bushwhacker Luke and stuff, and he was sleeping in his room, and you guys, I think y'all were going to get lunch, right?
No, we had just pulled in. We were just getting into town, so we were checking into the hotel.
Yeah, like, these guys were just checking in, and we were basically, I want to say, yeah, I was on my way to the building, because we had to be there early. He wanted us there by, like, 2 o'clock and stuff to set up for the fan fest, for the meet and greet that started at 4. But they started letting fans in, I want to say at like 3:15 or something like that.
It was weird.
It was definitely a lot of miscommunications at the very beginning. You know, at the beginning of the day and stuff. Once we got to go, there was a lot of miscommunications. But I think by the time the bell rang and showtime started at 6 o'clock, that everything was under control.
Well, before we get to the main event of that evening, can you tell me any reactions you heard from people about the Battle Royal that took place that night?
Oh, my God. So they had former UFC star, seen on, you know, the Ultimate Fighter and stuff. Stephen Bonner was in the Battle Royal. And, you know, I was putting my gear on and stuff, and I was getting ready for my match and stuff. And all I could hear was Sugar D and D-Ray 3000, which I know him as D-Ray 3000. I forgot what his gimmick is now. But them two and a bunch of other guys, you know, was checking out the Battle Royal, and it was like, ooh, ah. And I guess, like, Stephen Bonner, like, nobody's smarting him up that this is wrestling. This is like a UFC, and he was just beating the piss out of guys for real. Like, he was legitimately beating the piss out of guys. Guys were getting, you know, potatoes were being thrown left and right. And, a couple of guys, one guy in particular, I'm not going to mention his name, like almost got his knee blown out and stuff because of a stiff kick. I want to say Swaggle was in the ring, and Swaggle went and hit him, and he completely no-sold Swaggle, and he almost knocked out Congo Kong and stuff. Like, luckily Congo Kong is a vet, and he knows how to take care of himself. But, yeah, there was just things, you know, he was just throwing potatoes left and right, man. I couldn't believe, like, nobody had smartened him up. They're like, hey, look, this isn't real. You know, don't really kill anybody. This is for entertainment. Don't have speed. Like,
was that a 16-foot ring or was that an 18-foot ring?
I want to say that was a 16-footer. That was definitely a 16-foot ring.
Yeah, they probably had, 20, 25 guys in this
battle? It was, 25 guys in the Battle Royal.
How many?
25.
So 25, and a lot of them were names that you've heard of, guys, like our buddy Greg Iron, or not Greg Iron, excuse me. Zach Gallen was in it, Swaggle was in it, Congo Kong, Rob Conway. What are some of the other names that people have heard of that were in that Battle Royal?
Besides Stephen Bonner, Shane Mercer was in there. I'm trying to think who else.
Isaiah was in there, I think.
Yes. Man, was Bushwhacker Luke in the Battle Royal?
Nope. He waited for the main. He was going to be in the Battle Royal, but then with some cancellations that happened, he ended up working the main instead. Okay.
It was crazy. I know there was a bunch of guys in there. I'm kind of familiar with the I hate to say this, but the bigger names and stuff in the Midwest Indies. There was a couple of guys there that I'd seen back and forth, but I really didn't know them. But yeah, it was a small ring with a lot of people in it, and there was a lot of potatoes being thrown. And there was a lot of guys who were legitimately pissed off at the fact that, this guy, that they thought that this guy was in the ring taking liberties.
Yeah, and I saw a lot of shoot knees being thrown during it. It was pretty wild. But so that was, the fans had fun watching that. They did the gimmick Zach Allen was in, and he has only got one leg, and part of a way to lose a battle royal is that both feet have to hit the ground. So somebody went and grabbed his prosthetic leg and threw it on the ground. That way both of his feet hit the ground. I thought that was funny. I'm sure he's done that bit all around. But so let's get to the main event. After this 5-hour show had been taking place, we finally got to the main event, and
yes,
it was Shug D, the freelance heavyweight champion, GPA, our buddy, the franchise Troy Miller, Bushwhacker Luke, Mr. William Huckaby, all taking on a 6-man match for Drew Skills Heavyweight Championship. Can you tell us what your thoughts of that match were?
I thought it was great. I definitely had fun being in the ring with everybody. The crowd was incredible. Unfortunately, and I'm going to tell Killer Kev this, Kev, we had talked for for 2-3 weeks that Zane was going to be my special ring announcer for this match, correct? Kev? You know what, Zane, you're lucky. Kev doesn't want to. I see. Kev doesn't want to branch you. Zane, we talked for 2-3 weeks about you being my guest ring announcer, and then we get to the show, and you let Drew Skills bully you into being his special guest ring announcer.
Well, okay, know what I'm saying? Here's the story. Here's the story as I know it. I kept asking you, did you check with the promoter? Did you check with the promoter? No, I didn't check with him yet. I'm sure it'll be fine. Drew made the decision as the champion that I was going to be in it. I was going to be his guy. So, sorry. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that here in a few minutes because I want to talk briefly about Sunday.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to say you did great.
I did as Drew's heel. That was my first time ever being a heel.
Yeah, I think you did excellent, man. You have such a great voice. Unfortunately, it wasn't the greatest sound system, and you made the best. You said really, you sounded a lot better than the guy they had as the ring announcer. You were loud, you were clear, you didn't mumble over. You wasn't mumbling. You didn't stutter over your words. You were very confident. You were very engaging with the crowd and stuff. I think you did a fantastic job as a ring announcer, man. I was highly, highly impressed. And I can't understand why they wouldn't just have you be the ring announcer for the entire show, because you totally upstaged the ring announcer that everybody else got.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. During your match, it was a 6-person elimination match, and it kind of started off with some trading some blows, then everybody gets some shots in. You had a run there where you took out just about everybody. You threw a wicked spine buster, and I know that you're known for your spine busters. And then I think you threw a power slam on somebody. And one of the guys that I was standing next to said, "This is wrestling. This is awesome." So
I'll tell you what, man. I really wanted to get some hype because I do the pop-up spine buster. I really wanted to get some hype for that spine buster, but the ceiling. I don't know if you noticed, the ceiling was actually kind of low, and so I really couldn't throw GPA the way I wanted to without his head hitting the ceiling. So I kind of, instead of throwing him up, I kind of tossed him up a little bit, caught him, and then just spin into the spine buster. I think the funniest thing about that is the beginning of the match, I'm trading shots, I go to get ready to lock up with Bushwhacker Luke, and I'm in my mind, no, not locking up with this guy. This fucker's crazy. So I give him, the knee to the gut, and I'm throwing him shots, and he's just not selling. I'm hitting him. I'm just there's no selling. And so every shot was a little bit tighter. So I'm all right, he's going to sell. He's definitely, and he's not selling. Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna clothesline him. The hell with it. I gotta do something. So I'm hitting him with stiff shots, and I think that he kind of got me back on the spear because his shoulder went directly into my sternum. And there was supposed to be something after that. Now I rolled out the ring because I had to catch my breath. I don't know if you saw me, wheezing for air and stuff, but he caught me directly in the sternum with his shoulder. And I was like, okay, turn around. So I'm thinking to myself, turn around, fair play. I kind of deserve that one for, throwing a stiff shot at Bushwhacker Luke. Okay, whatever. I think the biggest reaction we got, I think one of the biggest reactions in the match was when me and some Skills faced off. He went for the shoulder tackle and I didn't bump. And I just stood there, and I think that got a huge reaction from the crowd. Because with the exception of, say again?
I was agreeing with you.
I think with the exception of Big Russ Jones and Congo Kong, there's not a lot of really huge guys in the Midwest that can match up size for size with Drew Skills, with a guy Drew Skills' size. So when you see that happen, you're just like, oh, man. And then for me, not being from the Midwest, not being from Indiana, not really working a lot of the shows and stuff in the area, I was kind of the wild card. And so nobody really knew what I could do or who I was. So to see this fresh face come in, basically, and just go toe-to-toe with the champion, that kind of shocked, in my opinion, that shocked a lot of people. Unfortunately, like I said, like you mentioned, I went on my little rampage and bodies are thrown all over the place or whatever. And of course, Drew being the champion that he is, I felt like I had him where I wanted him, had him in the corner. He moved out the way, and then all of a sudden, all the little small guys jumped on me. Here comes Drew with his big, huge, 200 plus, 250 pound plus self, trying to do a crossbody. And then Bushwhacker Luke for the pin and stuff, the Stone Cold Stunner, which was, in my opinion, was hilarious. It was a complete honor to take the Stone Cold Stunner from Bushwhacker Luke. Even though I'm mad that I was the first one eliminated, but things happen.
Hey, at least he didn't do the Rikishi stink face to you. He does that a lot.
Oh, I guess I got lucky then.
Yes, you did. You did. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I got a chance to watch the rest of the match. I thought the rest of the match was really good. I feel like a lot of people in the Midwest, especially, Jeremy Seabolt, and even he was a legend and stuff. GPA is really good. He's a really good talent. Young, fresh, a lot of energy and stuff, has a great look. Represented freelance wrestling very, very well and stuff, man.
Yeah, that was my first opportunity to see GPA. I was very impressed. So yeah, he did. I was just going to say, so the next night, Drew and I, at Heroes and Legends, Drew and I did the same gimmick. But I kind of worked myself into a shoot. So they have laminate for, vendors and talent and fans at Heroes and Legends. So I had a vendor laminate, and I took a black Sharpie and put on the back of it, on the white part that's all on the back of it, and I wrote with a black Sharpie, all access. So when I went into the ring, it was just the ring announcer in there and the referee, Tommy Two Shoes. And, of course, we worked this out beforehand. But they said, what are you doing in here? I said, I've got an all-access pass. That means I can be anywhere, so including the ring. And so then I introduced Drew, and, he was a monster out there. And I got out of the ring before Jerry Lawler came out. And went back by the sound guy, and then after the match, which Drew won, I announced him as the winner and the real king of Fort Wayne and the true king of the North. So a couple days later, I asked the promoter what he thought of how I did out there. And he's like, "Well, I don't even know why you were out there. You weren't supposed to be backstage. You weren't, you weren't booked for this. I don't know who gave you clearance to be out there." So I sent a message to his right-hand man who was running the production, basically, and asked him what he thought. And he's like, "Well, I didn't even really see you. I know I walked past you when you were walking out to the ring, but I totally didn't even know why you were there." So my all-access pass that I had drawn up for myself worked. So if anybody ever wants to be a guest ring announcer to somebody, just write all access somewhere on you, and you'll be fine. You can just walk to the ring. Just take the microphone out of the announcer's hand.
No, okay, so I'm going to ask you, who ring announced Heroes and Legends?
It was the same announcer from Smash Fest.
So they should have been. Okay, so like I said, I don't know that gentleman. I'm sure he's a great guy. And we can say that the majority of the problems was with the sound system. Okay, but with both of y'all using the same mic, and you sound so much better on the mic than he does, because he's talking in such a low voice like this, and hoping that the sound guy would turn the sound up so he can project. And you're talking and projecting your voice. They should have they should have been happy that you were there. I'm pretty sure that Drew was actually happy to have you ring announce him both nights than that guy. And that's not just me saying that because you're my co-host and I consider you a friend. It's because you were twice as good as that guy was. Period. Point blank.
Well, but that was the whole gimmick, though, that he was so important that he has his own ring announcer. I'm not the first one to do that. Ricardo Rodriguez built a career off of doing that. But I thought it was fun. It was my first time ever being a heel anywhere, and I got a little bit of a reaction up there in Valparaiso, but in Fort Wayne, and maybe it's because Drew's been dominating there in Fort Wayne for so long, and he's really over as a heel there, but I got so many people cursing at me. It was awesome. It was so cool to be the bad guy.
I would tell you what, man, I was really surprised at the amount of heat that Drew got, that all three of you guys got, actually. But especially Drew. He came out there with a really good friend of mine, Maddie Max, or Mad Maddie. She's from the OVW Women's Champion and stuff. Came out with her as his valet. I was really surprised at the amount of sheer heat that he got. Totally, as being as a huge fan of Southern wrestling and growing up with the Crocker promotions and Memphis wrestling and stuff, it was a sheer pleasure to watch somebody get such a reaction from the crowd just from making his entrance, and there were people, of course they had a chance, the "You Can't Wrestle" chant. There were little kids. I seen little kids 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, booing Drew and telling him that he sucked and he couldn't wrestle. And as soon as he walked past him and looked at him, they started shrinking in their seats, like, "Oh God, please don't let him single me out. Please don't let him hit me." It was so cool to see that there's still guys out there who can get that kind of emotion out of fans and can still make kids that afraid of him. Because I know you've been on shows, I've been on shows as well, where guys try to scare kids and the kids are laughing at them, and you lean in towards them, and they, instead of the kids jumping back, they jump forward like they're going to punch you. It was really cool to see that nobody in that building really wanted a piece of Drew Skills.
All right, well, I'm done talking about last week. Why don't you tell us about, you said that you had a crazy weekend this weekend. What was going on?
So this weekend, this Saturday, I wrestled for Warzone Wrestling, based out of Fayetteville, North Carolina. Started to get the reputation that I guess that they're basically an adult show that's only held, they only run in bars and places in adult establishments. So the owners, and they told us that the owners basically was like, we want to change how people look at us. We're not just an adult show. We are a wrestling company for anybody. So we had a really good show. It was a show at an orphanage in the Falcons Children's Home in Falcon, North Carolina, which is maybe 25 minutes outside of Fayetteville. It's an orphanage and stuff for children. Right there in the gymnasium. First of all, probably the nicest gymnasium I've been in at least 2-3 years. They didn't have wooden floors. They had like some kind of rubbery material, but not like solid rubber. Have like little treads or grates or whatever, like the mats that you see in fast food restaurants that people stand on for 8 hours. That's the gym floor was made out of. It was really weird material. They had about 100 kids. Well, they had about 60 kids. They told us it was going to be at least all the kids from the orphanage would come. It was like 100 kids in the orphanage. About 60 of them came. I'll get to that later. And then, of course, you had the regular fans that came. What made it so weird is that you couldn't take your shirt off. You couldn't wrestle without a shirt on, which you know, Zane, and especially on the indies and stuff, that's a huge no-no, is wrestling with a shirt on. Guys really frown upon people who wrestle with shirts on and stuff, because they say it makes you look like a backyarder or whatever. This was the one show where they're like, no bare skin. There was like no you can't go out there without a shirt on. Like, no nipples can be seen on the show whatsoever. Okay. It was the weirdest thing ever. So I had to wrestle in a shirt, which is like the first time I've ever wrestled in a shirt, and it's the first time I wrestled in a shirt in like 7-8 years. The first half of the show there was no AC. They forgot to cut the AC back on because they had the doors open and stuff. So they forgot to cut the AC back on. So there was no AC. Sweltering hot. They have these huge gymnasium lights on and stuff. So you're sweating. It's like 120 degrees in the ring and everything.
With your shirt on.
With a shirt on. I had a really good match. I had to wrestle a dude, James Ryan, based out of Greensboro, North Carolina and stuff. Trains over there at Firestar Pro Wrestling, works for AML and stuff. Me and him, he's like 6'4", 6'5", maybe 210 pounds, really tall, skinny kid. Had a really good match. Of course, I was the heel. He was a babyface. These little preteen girls loved him to death. I remember somebody, like a lot of guys in the back were complaining, like, oh, the fans, you know, these kids, they don't know who to cheer for, who to boo for. So you got to really, if you're going to be a heel, you've really got to be a heel so they'll know who to cheer for, who to boo for. And, like, they love James Ryan and his little man bun so much. Maybe because he looked like a member of some boy band, I don't know. That as soon as I came out there, you know, bald head, scruffy beard, as soon as I walked out there, instant boos. And I was just like, really? You don't even know me. How is this a thing? We don't like you anyway. So I'm sitting there, like, you know, having a shouting match with a bunch of, like, 15, 16-year-old girls. But it's so funny because, like, the rest of the crowd loved me, but these kids were so loud that they drowned out the other fans that was in the building. It was a great show. It was really cool. Raised a lot of money for the children's home and stuff. But, yeah, afterwards, I was completely blown up. I didn't realize how thick my actual gimmick shirts are, the shirts that I sell. I didn't realize how thick they were until I had to wrestle in one. And, like, I got to the back, and I almost collapsed. I'm like, oh, God, it's so hot. Like, I think about to have a heat stroke wrestling in this damn shirt. I don't know how these people do this anymore. Like, oh, God, I'm so glad I don't wrestle in a shirt anymore, because this is horrible. But, yeah, it was, like I said, it was just really weird. You know, I was in a gym. I thought another thing that made it really crazy, like I said, is that they have 100 kids in the orphanage, and only 60 showed up. And I was sitting there thinking, like, it's a Saturday, you're in an orphanage. It's not like you really have a lot to do inside an orphanage, but obviously you'd much rather sit in a room and watch, you know, watch TV than go to an actual wrestling show and get outside the building. Because I asked one of the people who worked at the orphanage, I was like, so where are the rest of the kids at? Like, did they go to the mall or whatever? They're like, no. They're not allowed to leave without us. And I was like, are you serious? They're like, yeah. Like, unless they're going, like, on an actual trip or they have a job, they're stuck inside the orphanage on the property. And I was like, how bad is it that 40 to 50 kids much rather sit inside their room than go to a wrestling show? I felt
maybe
so
they were
bad
all scared.
Maybe. No, I was on the poster.
Or maybe they were promised shirtless men, and then when they were told that everybody had to wear shirts, then they decided to boycott.
Maybe. If I'd have known that I had to wear a shirt, I would have broken out I would have taken one of my old singlets. Because I guess wrestling singlets were fine, but everything else was a no-go. So if I'd have known that it was like, hey, you can't wear a shirt, you can't go topless, you have to have your nipples covered, I'd have broke out like an old singlet of mine and just worn that instead.
I don't know what to tell you, buddy. Did you do anything else over the weekend then?
I went and seen the new Fast and Furious movie, Fate of the Furious.
Oh, okay.
Saw that. Me and the wife went out on a date and stuff and seen Fate of the Furious. Pretty good movie. Zane, correct me if I'm wrong, because, you know, you belong to wrestling business and also you, Killer Kev. When you're watching, you know, movies and stuff now, you kind of watch it as a wrestler or as somebody who's in the business, and you start thinking of storylines. And so, have you guys seen the movie yet?
I have not.
Okay. No. Well, without any spoilers, I love the storyline, but I hated the finish. I was like, man, this finish blew they totally screwed the pooch, and they pulled the trigger on it way too early. Like, they totally jumped the shark with this finish. Like, they shouldn't have, did this and stuff, and then they could have carried it out another 2 movies. And Selena was like, stop being a wrestler. Just stop it. She's like, you're trying to book a storyline with a wrestling, with a regular movie.
I'll tell you, Jurassic World, the lead raptor is named Blue. Her name is Blue. And when she does a heel turn there to join the Indominus Rex, but then she does a face turn to make the save at the end, that was my whole mentality was, wow, this is a great wrestling angle.
Exactly. Exactly. So how was your weekend, Zane?
Let's get to the 3 count. We've
had a
lot of fun talking. Go ahead.
What did you do this weekend, Zane?
I helped out at WCWO on Friday night, and then hung out with family the rest of the weekend. So it was a good weekend. Good.
We
did the whole Easter thing at my mother-in-law's on Saturday, and then we did Easter with my brother on Sunday. So it was fun. It was a good weekend. So what was I going to say?
All right, I can't 3 count. 3 count.
All right, 3 count. We've had a lot of fun talking so far this episode. Sorry to bring us down right now, but one of our wrestling brothers, Matt, and I know I'm going to butcher this last name, Matt Analai, who wrestled as Rosie in the WWE. We've interviewed him a few times on our old show, the Undisputed Wrestling Show. I've had the pleasure of meeting him twice. Will, did you ever meet him in person?
I've never met him. I've met several members of his family in person. Been on several shows with members of his family and stuff, but never actually got the chance to meet him.
So as of today, which is Tuesday, the Analai family announced that Matt had passed away, and at the young age of 47. The couple times that I'd met him in person, he was very cordial, very nice to all the fans, especially kids. And the couple times that we've talked with him on the Undisputed Wrestling Show, he was very nice with his time. Told some great stories, and he will be missed. Do you have any memories that you want to discuss of Rosie?
I just remember even in high school, the height of my wrestling fandom, when they did the whole 3-second warning. I remember I was legitimately afraid of Rosie. I thought that he was probably one of the scariest people I'd seen on TV up to that point. They came out with the whole 3-minute warning. There was no smiles. There was no laughs. There was no joking. They would come in and they would beat up on anybody, man, woman, child, and then they would just leave. And then when he did the storyline with Shane Helms and stuff, and he was a superhero in training, complete 180 from the 3-second warning gimmick. You got to see his range. You got to see how actually funny he was. If there's any indication, from meeting several members of his family, the members of his family that I've seen, cousins, stuff like that I've met, I think that's just a family trait. They're all very humble, very fun, very giving and free giving with their time and stuff and advice and everything. But that's about all I have.
Yeah, I don't know of anybody who's spoken a bad word about him. So to his friends and family that might be listening, he will be missed, and very, very sorry for your loss. Let's go ahead and move on to count 2. Have you heard all this stuff with Vince Russo lately?
Oh my goodness! Have I? Yes, I have.
I'm just going to give a quick recap. Vince Russo, and I don't know if this is a ploy for ratings or what, but on his podcast, he said that to all the NXT fans that chant, this is awesome, and they talk about wrestlers' bodies, that all those fans must be gay. Either they must be gay or at least partially homosexual, or they're in the closet. My first thing for that is there's nothing wrong with people being gay. You can be gay and be a wrestling fan. You can be straight and be a wrestling fan. It really doesn't matter. You can be gay and be a wrestler. You can be straight and be a wrestler. It really doesn't matter. So when people first off say that someone else is gay, as in it's a bad thing, then that automatically tells me that they're a moron. But then to infer that people who are fans of the business that you've been a part of for the past 25 years, that you're putting them down for being fans, it totally makes no sense to me. What were your thoughts about this whole Vince Russo thing?
I think that it was highly uncalled for. I think the comment was highly uncalled for. I don't think there's any way that they can, turn this around. There's no way you can spin that comment. I think that Vince Russo is he's not even a student. I think he's one of the professors of the school of thought that controversy creates cash, and that all publicity is good publicity, which is not the case in this situation. Especially in this politically charged world, this very PC world, with all the things that are going on in today's society, for somebody to say something so not only barbaric, but hate, in my opinion, is hate-filled. Something so barbaric and something so hate-filled has no place in our business. For you to say that our fans, because, as a wrestler, for you to say that wrestling fans, our fans, are either gay or partially gay because they love certain wrestlers, because they love watching wrestling, it's complete other bullshit. I'm a straight man, but I can look at somebody like Bobby Roode, and say, hey, that guy has a great look. I can look at somebody like Cedric Alexander, or I'm trying to think of another muscle guy, or Cesaro or whatever, and say, hey, these guys really look good, and not be, and not mean anything behind it. In my opinion, there's nothing wrong with appreciating how someone looks. These guys make their money off of their body. This is a very aesthetic business, and it's cool to appreciate how these guys look. That's the reason why wrestling fans, in my opinion, are wrestling fans. Not only because of the stories, but because wrestlers, whether they are muscle guys or whether they're not, they are larger than life. There's something about a wrestler that you see that attracts you to them. It might be, for me, it was, when I was a child, I was always a huge fan of guys who look tough. My top two favorite wrestlers are Arn Anderson and Ray Stevens. Not body guys whatsoever. Didn't have abs, didn't have a six-pack, but they looked like they were tough, and they looked like they could beat the shit out of anybody if they walked into a place. I also liked Lex Luger. I thought that Lex Luger was one of the coolest guys ever. Probably not a great wrestler, technical wrestler. He was no way near close to being a great technical wrestler, but he looked like $1 million. And as a kid, you see a guy, over 6 feet tall, over 250 pounds, abs, muscles all out the place. Girls are going crazy. As a child, you see that and you're like, hey, I want to be like that when I grow up. And then as you become an adult, you still see that, and you're like, man, that guy looks really good. I wish I could look like that. There's nothing wrong with our fans loving people the way they loving wrestlers because of how they look. It's very insulting for Vince Russo to even it's insulting for him to say that, but for him to even mention or to give the notion that, hey, and he did say wrestling fans. He said marks. He was like, these NXT marks, they love these wrestlers and stuff. They must be gay. So you insulted these people twice, and you did it in such a derogatory statement. I'm surprised that the podcast company that he works for, who's he? Is it MLW?
No, he's not on MLW for Podcast One or Angry Marks. so he's not on any of the major league ones.
I'm about to say, because I would be surprised, because I know if we would have said something like that, we definitely would have got reprimanded, if not taken off of the Angry Marks Podcast Network. If he doesn't belong to a major podcast place, I'm surprised that they haven't pulled the show, or they're probably like, hey, well, you know what, at least he's bringing ratings to our company now. But in my opinion, that's a bad way to get ratings. That's a bad way to have people talk about you. If you want to get ratings, whatever, you want to make your show better, do like the rest of us in this podcast world and stuff, and try to put on the best show that you can, the best informative show, the best interviews, tell the best stories, whatever the case may be, and don't be controversial. Don't start insulting people just to get over, just to get downloads.
Now, Killer Kev, our awesome producer, Killer Kev, do you have any thoughts on this Vince Russo thing?
I pretty much try not to pay any attention to what Vince Russo says, so I don't hold an opinion.
Well, I'm gonna have count two. I'm gonna have a little second, so it's gonna be count 2B. It's not really wrestling related, but our president was asked to sign a hat for a young man for the Easter egg roll. And I don't know if you guys saw this, but he took the hat from the kid, signed it, and then instead of handing the hat back to the kid, he threw it into the crowd for anybody else to grab. Can you think of any bigger heel thing to do? I think that you need to feel that well. I think that when people ask you for an autograph, you take their item, sign it, and then just throw it.
No, see, I would. I mean, that sounds good and stuff, but at the same time, you're taking this person's personal property, and not society being the way it is. If you're a name or whatever, you have some motive come up with a name, a fame. If you sign something, you take this little kid's hat or Easter egg, whatever, and you sign it and you throw it to the crowd. That kid's not getting he's not getting his property back. That it might get you over as a heel to like adults or whatever, but now you've just scarred this child. There are a lot easier ways to get heat with kids, in my opinion, than throwing their personal property away. Don't get me wrong, I've done some pretty dastardly things. I've ripped up kids' posters and stuff like that. Kids make signs, but I've only ripped up the signs that involve my match. If a kid made a sign that said, Huckaby sucks or whatever. Oh, I do? Okay, give me that sign. Now I rip that sign up. If you were a chair for my opponent, say, I'm working Zane Pasley. It's like, Zane Pasley rocks. And I'm working you that night. Oh, let me see that Zane Pasley poster. I'll rip that up. But a situation like that, man, although it sounds cool, myself personally, that's not something that I would do. So you're
saying that you're not as big of a heel as the President of the United States?
I'm nowhere near as big a heel as the President of the United States. I don't even think that's not even being a heel. That's being a dick. Somebody told me when I was very green in this business that there's good heat and there's bad heat. And what he did is bad heat. That's the heat when nobody's coming out to see you, fans aren't buying tickets, nobody's going to the concession stand, nobody's making money. They're not paying to see you get your ass beat. They're just not paying to see anything, period, now. That's bad heat.
Okay, all right. Count 3. With the Superstar shakeup, and we didn't record last week, so I don't want to go too far into the Superstar shakeup in WWE. But one of the things I thought was interesting, and I've got a theory about this, is that Bray Wyatt got switched to the Raw brand. He's owed a rematch with Randy Orton for the WWE World Championship. They are going to have that match on the next Raw pay-per-view. So it's the SmackDown Championship on the next Raw pay-per-view. My theory, and I could be crazy, but this is my theory on it, is that Bray Wyatt will win that WWE World Championship. So that way they have a main belt to be defended on Raw week in and week out, while Brock Lesnar has the Universal Championship, which who knows when he'll be back to defend it. Do you think I'm crazy for thinking that, or do you think that might be a good idea for WWE to do?
I'm not going to say it's a good idea for WWE to do it, but I think that you're definitely on the right path. I think that that's exactly why they're doing it. But I think it's a bad decision. I mean, they chose to make Brock Lesnar the Universal Champion, which means that now whoever your secondary champion is, until Brock comes back, that's your main title on the Raw brand. I think I said it when there was the whole when they were talking this whole superstar shakeup, is that SmackDown is supposed to be seen as the B show, and in all reality, a lot more fans are enjoying SmackDown than they are Raw. That's the problem. Like I just think that the only time I really wanted to see Raw was when I knew that Brock Lesnar was going to be up there, mainly because I knew I was going to get a Paul Heyman promo. While on the other hand, on SmackDown, I'm watching it because I want to watch the matches. You know, I want to see, okay, well, who's doing this and who's going to work who? What matches they're going to have on SmackDown. With Raw, I know it's a 3-hour show. An hour and 20 minutes of it is definitely going to be promos and talking and backstage stuff. And I might get 45 minutes of actual in-ring wrestling. While on SmackDown, it's a 2-hour show, and I'm going to get about an hour and a half of in-ring wrestling, which is what as a wrestling fan, that's what I want. As for me, Zane, and I don't know if you noticed this or not, but Nia Jax didn't she get drafted or she got sent to SmackDown?
No.
Like she showed up on SmackDown last week, and she's still on Raw. She was on Raw yesterday.
I don't remember her being on SmackDown last week.
Yeah, they brought her out during the promo with to introduce her and Charlotte as the new additions to the women's division on SmackDown.
I thought they brought out Tamina.
Huh?
I thought they brought out Tamina.
Oh yeah, they did bring out Tamina. I'm sorry, I'm an idiot. All these Samoan chicks look the same.
Raw, though, speaking of Raw, what's up with your buddy Dash Wilder?
From what I heard, you know, the Carolina boys are kind of going through an injury phase. Cedric Alexander messed his knee up. I think from what I've heard, talking to friends and stuff, he has a broken jaw, so he'll be out for a couple of weeks. Which is cool because
that's awful.
It's awful, but at the same time, and don't get me wrong, it's very bad when anybody gets injured. Hopefully now they'll put, you know, Scott Dawson in some singles matches, and we can really, now the world can really see what he can do. Like, this guy's an amazing technician. You're talking about somebody who's a fan of, like, old school wrestling and stuff, and Mr. Perfect and things like that. Like, Scott Dawson is a great technical wrestler and stuff, and you really don't get to see everything that he can do in a tag team match. So hopefully they'll put him in some singles matches to keep the team name out there and stuff. That way when Dash Wilder comes back, they can go right back running at 100 miles an hour and stuff. But I'm really excited to see what they're going to do with him while Dash is out.
Okay, all right. All right, you ready for the big question of the week?
Let's go with it.
Which do you think will happen first? The Hardy Boys will become broken again, or the Miracle Mike Bennett and Maria Kanellis appear on the main roster for WWE?
Ooh. Hold on. You said the Hardys become broken again, or Mike Bennett and Maria Kanellis appears on the main roster? Which one's going to happen first?
Yes, that was the question.
I'm going to go with Mike Bennett and Maria Kanellis ends up on the main roster before the broken gimmick. You know, there's still litigation and stuff going on with the Hardys and Impact Wrestling and stuff. Who created the character, who didn't create the character, who got paid, who signed contracts, who didn't sign contracts. And Vince, if nothing else, is a very smart businessman. So until all of that gets cleared up, they're definitely they're gonna steer away from the broken gimmick, which is a shame because I think that the broken gimmick is the reason why they signed the Hardy Boys, because it's one of the most original gimmicks in the past 20, 30 years, in my opinion. It's something that's never been done before. I can't remember anybody ever doing anything similar to that. So it's a damn shame that you can't see that on a national level. But I'm definitely going to go with the Prodigy Mike Bennett. As I know, I will always call him the Prodigy because that's how he came into ROH as a Prodigy and stuff. I would definitely see Mike Bennett and Maria Kanellis joining the main roster. And I hope that they go to SmackDown. instead of Raw.
Okay. All right. I'm going to agree that Mike Bennett and Maria Kanellis join the main roster, even though they haven't officially been signed. I don't think that they need to go down to NXT. Plus, NXT is pretty loaded right now, and I don't think that they'll turn the Hardys broken anytime soon. And my reason isn't because of the legal thing, because if Vince McMahon wants to pay off Anthem, he can pay them off for that. But why do it right now when the Hardys are so over with their Team Extreme look, their throwback look? You know, save the broken stuff for later on when they're not as over. You know, with the Dudleys that came back as the old school Dudleys, maybe if they had transitioned to, Bully Ray after that run had kind of faded, maybe they'd still be around in WWE. So, save the broken stuff until it's needed. That's my opinion. All right.
You make a good. Okay, I'm sorry. I was going to say you make a really good point. I didn't even think about that from a booking perspective. That right now they're still doing the whole nostalgia run as the tag team gimmicks. What I was thinking about is that how many WWE superstars are still on the roster now that were there when the Hardy Boys were there. I can think of the Big Show, Goldust, and R-Truth. Those are the only three that I could come up with. Oh, and Jericho. Maybe was Randy Orton and Cena there? Cena was definitely there because Jeff Hardy's last big feud was with CM Punk, and CM Punk came in after Cena, and Randy Orton would have been also, but Mark Henry, Dean, you said R-Truth, right? Yes, I said R-Truth and Goldust.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I'm gonna say they have an entire roster of brand new wrestlers who grew up watching the Hardy Boys and now they're actually wrestling them. Like, how amazing is that? Like, there's a lot of guys who were in middle school and high school when Team Extreme was really going strong, and now these kids and stuff are on the main roster with the Hardy Boys.
Yeah, it's very cool. It shows their staying power and how they've been able to reinvigorate themselves over the last couple of years. Because, when Jeff Hardy had that match with Sting where Jeff Hardy was on whatever he was, and he had that 90-second match with Sting that Sting just took care of him in the ring, literally took care of him in the ring. I remember a couple years ago making fun of Big Money Matt Hardy being the TNA World Champion. How can they have Matt Hardy be a champion in 2014 or 2015 or whatever? I guess they proved me wrong. So good on them. Great job. And, save the broken gimmick until it's needed because they're still over right now with their elders.
Now, I have a question for you, Zane.
Yes, sir?
Mickie James, relevant in 2017 in the women's division or not? Do you think she's taking the space that can be given to somebody else, or do you think they needed a female wrestler with the experience like Mickie James on the main roster right now? Does she give any credit? I'm going to play this. Does she give any credits to the women's division?
Yeah, I think that she's a great addition, whether she's on Raw or SmackDown. Number one, she can still go in the ring. Number two, she still has the physical presence to be there and to be relevant. Who would you rather have as a women's locker room leader, Mickie James or Nikki Bella?
Could I say Gail Kim instead? No, I would.
Gail Kim back to WWE, but
no.
I don't know if that's going to happen soon. And with the brand separation, it makes sense to have Natalya on one brand and Mickie James to be on the other one, so they can have those veteran locker room leaders. Because no matter how great Sasha Banks, Bayley, Alexa Bliss, Charlotte Flair, all those girls are, none of them should be the locker room leaders just yet because they haven't had that much experience on top there. So I think it's a great idea to have Mickie James in. I wouldn't put a belt on her anytime soon, but it's great to have her there.
Yeah, okay. I was just wondering that because I was seeing the match and stuff, and you can kind of see how she was directing traffic during that women's match. And there was a couple of, blown spots that she kind of had to cover up for somebody, for a couple of other girls. So that's what I was asking.
And that's probably something that you're going to notice that 99.95% of the Raw fans won't ever notice. But that's the rest of them versus the market. I'm paying you a compliment. That's awesome that you notice that sort of thing. So
thank you.
All right,
thank you.
Will, what do you got coming up this weekend?
This weekend I am in. Saturday I will be in Lyons, Georgia for NWA Georgia Extreme. I've heard rumors that I'm going to be in this big time match, a lot of big, huge guys, and but I'm really excited. Bad Blood is going to be there. I've heard rumors that it might be myself and Bad Blood for the NWA Continental Championship. I'll get my chance to get Connie back.
Oh,
yes, I've heard rumors. The new NWA National Champion is going to be there. No, I'm sorry. The new NWA Junior Heavyweight Champion, Eric Andrews, is going to be in the building. Former NWA National Champions, Damian Wayne and Cahagas, however you want to pronounce it, will be in the building. The NWA Georgia Champion, Logan Creed, will be there. So it's a really good show. I'm really looking forward to this. My first time actually being the NWA Georgia Extreme. It's a little south. It's a little further south in Georgia than I'm usually used to working. It's very south and east. It's like maybe 2 hours south of Savannah, Georgia and stuff. So it's maybe an hour and a half from the Florida border. So I haven't worked in that area ever. So I'm really excited about that. Then Sunday I'll be in Greensboro, North Carolina, for Zone 1 Wrestling. Firestar Pro Wrestling presents Zone 1, which is kind of like their version of NXT. Like I've said countless times before, I love working with young talent, love giving young talent the rub, love seeing what the future of professional wrestling is looking like. I have no idea. I'm 2-0 so far at Zone 1 Wrestling. All together between Zone 1 and Firestar Wrestling this year, I am 4-1. It's really cool because at Firestar Pro Wrestling, they really keep track of wins and losses, kind of like their ranking system. They haven't come up with the new rankings yet for April. They'll come out after this weekend. The new rankings will come out. Last month I was number 8, so then I won my match. So I'm really expecting that will go up higher and stuff in the rankings. So I've got my eye on being the Zone 1 championship and showing all these little greenhorns and stuff. That somebody my age and experience, aka an old guy such as myself, can still do a thing or two.